a small but growing group of progressive Democrats are continuing to look at the possibility of impeaching President Trump. Now, this is over, of course, the Mueller report, and that has Trump very nervous. Now, of course, leave it to progressives to lead the way on this, unlike Nancy Pelosi, who is now starting to finally feel the pressure and like saying, okay, maybe we should look into impeaching the president, even though it's really, really uncomfortable politically and I don't want to do it because it turns out that I raise a lot of money from Donald Trump. From Donald Trump being president, not from Trump himself, obviously. It'd be a little bit weird, but then again, knowing Nancy Pelosi wouldn't surprise me. Knowing the corporate Democrats, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Nonetheless, this impeachment thing, it's got Trump very nervous, very angry. And so he's going to go on a Twitter tirade, in which he says, quote, "Everything the Democrats are asking me for is based on an illegally started investigation that failed for them, especially when the Mueller report came back with a no collusion finding." So, look, this is in response, of course, to the House using its oversight powers to subpoena the president for documents related to the Mueller investigation, the Mueller report, which, surprise, surprise, found that William Barr's interpretation of said report turned out to be vastly misleading, and that the real report, what we've seen of it so far, actually laid out a troubling pattern of flouting the law when it came to the president. So, he continues in his tweets, quote, "Now they say impeach President Trump, even though he did nothing wrong while they fish." I love how he's like third-personing himself, like, Donald Trump wants a cheeseburger. I wonder if he does that during executive time. Donald Trump wants a cheeseburger with extra pickles, extra cheese, okay, and a Diet Coke. All right, you got that? That's what Donald Trump wants. Who talks like that? Honestly, who continues to refer to himself in the third person when he's talking to, when he's tweeting or when he's doing anything, and he'll do that at rallies. He'll do that. Again, I don't quite understand. Nonetheless, that's what he does. But on the substance of course, now the Democrats, they're just fishing for something wrong. No, the Mueller report stated a lot of different things, including 10 instances of possible obstruction of justice. I think that's really important. It turns out those things are kind of a crime. If you obstruct an investigation, even if the investigation doesn't find that you did anything wrong, it is still a crime to try to get in the way of an investigation. The best way to do that is to basically let it play out the way it's going to play out. If you were innocent, then okay, you're fine. Whatever. If Donald Trump had left this alone, Mueller would have came out and said, look, we found no evidence of a criminal conspiracy in, our limited capacity to investigate the 2016 election. Fine. If he had not tried to interfere all those different times, and 10 was the least number, right? He tried to do it more, but his staff basically just stopped listening to him. Or they stopped following his orders. Like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. That would clearly be obstruction of justice. That would get me in trouble. That would get Donald Trump in trouble too. But most importantly, it would get me in trouble. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take the fall for him. Heck no. I'm not interested. So, even with that, right? If he hadn't done any of that stuff, then there would be no issue. Now, there would be other issues like the Southern District of New York, these different investigations into the Emoluments Clause, etc. But that's not related to the Mueller investigation. It's stuff that Mueller handed off to these other investigators. Again, this was a very thin mandate, or I shouldn't say thin, it was a very narrow mandate to look at just collusion within, not even collusion, criminal conspiracy within the 2016 election as it pertains to Russia and Donald Trump, specifically them working together. So, there's that. But anyway, now, what's funny about this is that he's going on a Twitter tirade because he doesn't think it's fair, right? Well, I'm sorry. Just because you don't think it's fair to do an investigation does not mean that what you did was illegal, right? Or wasn't illegal. No, what he is that he's just a special snowflake. Obstruction of justice is illegal. Violating the Emoluments Clause is illegal. But he is, again, very special, very snowflakey. Now, more tweets. After 2 years of an expensive and comprehensive witch hunt, he says, the Democrats don't like the result and they want a do-over. Do-over? No, they don't want a do-over. This isn't a do-over. This isn't a re-investigation of the investigation. No, it's looking into what the investigation actually already found. But of course, he says, in other words, the witch hunt continues. Now, I love how his criticism now is, it is an expensive and comprehensive witch hunt. That seems to have found a lot of witches, right? But let's talk about expensive for a moment here. New report came out. How much President Trump spent on golfing? Do you know how much taxpayer money he spent on just his golfing trips? Over $100 million. That's through his whole term so far, right? Now, that's way more than President Obama spent in his 8 years, that Donald Trump spent in nearly 4. $100 million. Now, let's put it in the context of the Mueller investigation. You know, of course, those investigations, they cost a ton of money, right? So how much? Well, according to PolitiFact, who cited expenditure reports from the Mueller team itself that they put out, and this is just a bit of a rough guesstimate because they don't have all the numbers in, but it might have cost around $34 million for the entire 2-year investigation. That is about a third of what President Trump spent golfing. This expensive, comprehensive witch hunt is a lot cheaper than Trump's golf. Hilarious. And that's with the Mueller investigation, as I keep mentioning, being limited in scope to only looking at the possibility of a criminal conspiracy directly involving Trump working with Putin to steal the election, which we know didn't actually happen. A lot of us have been very skeptical of that. What happened is the Russians, of course, saw an opportunity to exploit our election to help an idiot. And the idiot, obviously too dumb to realize what he was doing. And it was like, I don't know. Hey, Russia, why don't you go hack Hillary's emails? Derp. No, he's too stupid to do a criminal conspiracy, and I've said that consistently. He is not a smart person. And so Russia just tried to interfere in the elections with memes and social media, tried to reach out to the Trump campaign, but they were too stupid to actually collude or whatever, do a criminal conspiracy. That's what the Mueller report found. Not for lack of trying. Not for lack of trying. But here's the thing. Even though he's not guilty of a criminal conspiracy of working directly with Putin and the Russian government, that doesn't mean he can't be charged with other things, like campaign finance violations, for example, when it came to the Stormy Daniels payments, which were, of course, carried out and ordered by Trump and carried out by Michael Cohen, his former lawyer. Or, of course, obstruction of justice, as I just mentioned, or breaking the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, or the other investigations into his possible criminality. Any of those things could lead to impeachment. And why do I say that? It's because Bill Clinton was basically impeached for lying to Congress about an affair. You know what else could lead to impeachment? Refusing to answer numerous requests for documents and testimony from figures in Trump's White House or Trump's administration. And that is exactly what's happening here. This is Don McGahn, right? This whole thing is about the Trump White House stopping Don McGahn from testifying. That's it. That's it. And again, if Bill Clinton lying to Congress can trigger an impeachment, then, well, Trump has himself lied to Congress and has instructed William Barr to also lie to Congress. President Trump is surrounded by criminals because he is a criminal. He is a criminal. And yet he goes on Twitter and he screams this: presidential harassment. What a snowflake baby. Sad. So sad. Now, again, he's very, very concerned. He's very worried about this because in his simple mind, he thought, well, if Mueller can't prove that there was collusion because I never worked directly with the Russians, well, then this whole thing should just go away. No, he was wrong. There's more than enough things that Donald Trump himself has done wrong because he is a dirty person. He is a criminal. And he has a long history of doing grifts and then getting away with it. I mean, and of course, that has led to some Democrats, progressive Democrats, that are looking to impeach. In fact, here you have not so much progressive Democrats, but progressives had led the way. Here you've got House Budget Committee Chairman John Yarmuth, who's saying this, quote, "There's a growing understanding that the impeachment process is inevitable. When, not if." That's what he told reporters. So now you got John Yarmuth of Kentucky, a Democrat, on board. More and more Democrats are defying Nancy Pelosi and saying, okay, I think it's time to look into this. This might be time to impeach. So get it ready. Now, you also had a Republican, Justin Amash, signing on for impeachment. Now, this is important because he's a Republican. But it comes with a couple of caveats. For one, this isn't one of the caveats, but Justin Amash is from Michigan. Okay. So I thought that was interesting because, hey, it's my home state. So a little bit of credit here. At least we have a Republican here that has some principle. But really, Amash is more of a libertarian than a Republican himself, and a lot of libertarians that I've spoken to personally despise Donald Trump. They think it's laughable that the president is Donald freaking Trump. He does not stand for actual conservative principles, and especially libertarian principles, which are more, of course, constitutionally focused, right? Now, of course, that's an anecdote, but I still felt that it was important to mention. But most of your rank-and-file Republicans, and this is the difference, are not attached to the Constitution like many libertarians and don't care at all about rule of law. So that kind of explains why Amash basically stands alone. Now, Rand Paul calls himself a libertarian. I don't believe that at all because there's been so many times where Rand Paul could have put his libertarianism on display and actually came out with a principled position. Sometimes he has, but most of the time he has declined those chances and has sidled up to President Trump. And that is just sad. Now, anyway, one more fun tweet here. And I mention it because of the high salt content contained within. He said, quote, "Without the illegal witch hunt, my poll numbers, especially because of our historically great economy, would be at 65%. Too bad." I love that tweet. So salty. So salty. No, his approval rating would not be great without the Mueller investigation. Why is that? Because he's a terrible president. Again, he was voted in one of the most unpopular people to have ever been voted in as president. He is actually slightly more popular than the other person, Hillary Clinton, who was even more deeply unpopular. But he's one of the most deeply unpopular presidents to have ever become president. So, or I should say deeply unpopular candidates to become president. It's just, in 2016, we had literally almost no choice. I'm not saying that they're the same, of course. They're not the same. But they were both really bad choices. There was bad, and then there was much worse. And people were like, I don't know, much worse, I guess. Let's go for it. Let's see how far we can fall down this well. Well, it appears we've fallen pretty far. His approval rating was never, ever going to be above 50%. Ever. But look, the reason why Again, he's a terrible president, right? Even presiding over what he claims to be a pretty good economy. And let me give you some reasons why. Trade war with China. It's killing farmers. He's built no wall, maybe a little bit of fencing, but no wall. No big, beautiful wall. His economy, which was left over mostly from President Obama, was basically given a sugar rush by his giant tax cuts for the rich, which are creating other problems. It's basically a house of cards waiting for a stiff wind to blow it over. Ford, for example, just cut 7,000 jobs. Add to that the previous round of layoffs at GM, Carrier, Harley-Davidson, AT&T, on and on and on and on, right? No, that's not a great economy. That's an economy waiting to go into free fall. It just needs something to push it over the edge. It's not good. You also have nearly stagnant wages, barely outpacing inflation, increasing costs of healthcare, education, student loans. The defaults are on the rise. They continue to rise. These are not the hallmarks of a stable, fantastic economy, right? No, without massive change, this is going to all come down and it's not going to be pretty. And so, what does he have? What does he have if not for the booming economy? He's got nothing. So, he's going to continue to be one of the most unpopular presidents ever. And that was even without the Mueller investigation. And I think it's that fact that bothers him the most. When in reality, he should be a lot more afraid of what Congress could do to him. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.